The complete story of the Battle of Stalingrad. The city that would not die, a frozen battlefield where over 2 million lives were lost. This is the story of Stalingrad, the bloodiest battle in human history. Hitler's ambition. In the summer of 1942, Adolf Hitler believed victory in the East was close. The previous year, his armies had surged across the Soviet Union in Operation Barbarossa, inflicting millions of casualties and seizing vast stretches of territory. Yet the Soviet Union had not collapsed as he predicted. Moscow still stood. Stalin still ruled. Hitler now turned his gaze southward. He wanted the oil fields of the Caucasus to fuel his war machine, and he chose Stalingrad as his next prize. The city was not just an industrial hub on the Volga River. It carried Stalin's name, making it a target of enormous symbolic importance. For Hitler, capturing Stalingrad would break Soviet morale and prove to the world that Nazi Germany was unstoppable. By August 1942, German Army Group South, spearheaded by the 6th Army under General Friedrich Paulus, advanced toward the city. Confident and battle-hardened, the Germans expected to crush Soviet resistance within weeks. They were wrong. The city in ruins. On August 23, 1942, the Luftwaffe unleashed one of the most destructive air raids of the war. In hours, entire districts of Stalingrad were flattened. Tens of thousands of civilians died, and the city became an ocean of fire, smoke, and rubble. But instead of collapsing, the Soviet defense stiffened. The ruins of Stalingrad became a fortress. Streets clogged with debris prevented tanks from maneuvering, while broken buildings offered perfect hiding places for defenders. Here began what soldiers called Rattenkrieg, the War of the Rats. Combat was fought room to room, floor by floor, even in basements and sewers. Machine guns rattled across shattered factories. Grenades were tossed down stairwells. A single wall could be held for days at the cost of hundreds of lives. General Vasily Chukov, commanding the Soviet 62nd Army, ordered his men to hold at all costs. Not a step back, he declared. Soviet snipers, the most famous being Vasily Zaitsev, hunted Germans relentlessly, creating a climate of fear that wore down enemy morale. For the defenders, every ruined street was sacred ground. The daily hell. Life in Stalingrad was a nightmare for soldiers and civilians alike. Food was scarce, and clean water almost impossible to find. The Volga River, the only lifeline for reinforcements and supplies, was constantly shelled and bombed. Many boats never reached the shore. As autumn turned to winter, the suffering deepened. Temperatures plunged far below freezing. Soviet soldiers often fought with inadequate clothing, their breath turning to ice in the air. Civilians who had not fled before the battle endured the same misery. Families huddled in cellars or dugouts, surviving on scraps of bread or whatever they could find. Many helped the Red Army, carrying ammunition, tending the wounded, or even taking up arms themselves. For the people of Stalingrad, surrender was never an option. The trap. By November 1942, the Germans controlled most of the city, but the Soviets refused to yield. Then came the turning point. On November 19th, the Red Army launched Operation Uranus. Instead of striking the Germans head-on, Soviet forces attacked the flanks, which were held by Romanian, Italian, and Hungarian divisions, weaker allies with fewer tanks and poor equipment. The assault shattered them. Within days, the Soviets encircled the entire German 6th Army inside Stalingrad. More than 300,000 Axis soldiers were suddenly trapped in a freezing pocket of ruins. Hitler ordered Paulus to hold at all costs. Escape was forbidden. Supplies were promised by air, but the Luftwaffe could not meet the demand. To sustain the 6th Army required 600 tons a day. At best, only 100 tons arrived. Hunger spread. Soldiers slaughtered horses for food. Ammunition and fuel ran low. Frostbite and disease claimed thousands. The collapse. In December, Field Marshal Erich von Manstein attempted a rescue operation, codenamed Winter Storm. For a brief moment, German relief forces approached within striking distance of the trapped army. But the Soviets repelled the offensive, and Paulus never received permission to break out. The noose tightened. By January 1943, the Sixth Army was on the verge of collapse. Units disintegrated. Soldiers froze in their trenches. Entire divisions disappeared. Horses, dogs, and even boiled leather were eaten for survival. Medical care was almost non-existent. On January 31st, Paulus surrendered his headquarters in the southern pocket of the city. He had just been promoted to Field Marshal by Hitler, with a clear expectation that he would commit suicide rather than surrender. Paulus defied him, becoming the first German Field Marshal ever captured alive. A few days later, the northern pocket surrendered as well. On February 2nd, 1943, the Battle of Stalingrad was over. Out of 300,000 men trapped in the city, only about 90,000 survived to surrender. Most of them would never return from Soviet captivity. The turning point. The defeat at Stalingrad shocked the world. Nazi Germany had suffered a catastrophic loss, both militarily and psychologically. An entire army had been wiped out. Hitler's aura of invincibility was shattered. For the Soviets, Stalingrad was more than a victory. It was a symbol of survival and defiance. The Red Army had endured unimaginable suffering, but now it had the initiative. From Stalingrad onward, Soviet forces would push the Germans back, mile by mile, village by village, until the Red Banner flew over Berlin in 1945. The human cost, however, was staggering. Historians estimate over 2 million people, soldiers, civilians, Germans, Soviets, and Axis allies, were killed, wounded, or captured. Stalingrad was reduced to rubble, its population decimated. Yet out of its ashes, the Soviet Union rose with renewed determination. Legacy of Stalingrad. The Battle of Stalingrad is remembered today as the turning point of the Second World War. It was not just a clash of armies, but a struggle of wills. It showed that even the most powerful military could be broken when faced with unyielding resistance and sacrifice. Stalingrad was a graveyard for armies, but a beacon for the world. What would you have done trapped in that frozen hell? Would you have fought to the end, or surrendered to survive? The